Alright, so I bought this truck back in March. This is 2020. Bought it back in March. Did a little walk around. Tends to be, people like to walk around. So I've decided to, my next step with the truck is I'm going to do some upgrades to it. I've owned it since March. It's now the end of November. There's a couple of things I don't necessarily like about it. One of them being, as you can see in the video, the front of the truck is much lower than the rear of the truck. Now, I think that American car companies or vehicle companies, specifically Ford, make the nose of the truck lower because they like to set it up for towing. So when you put load in the back, it pushes the back down a little bit and it doesn't make the front stick up. If you look at like the Toyota Tacoma, theirs is pretty much level. And I kind of like that. I like that suspension setup better for driving and other things. I don't necessarily need it to tow all the time and be set up for towing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix it. Now there's a couple different ways that you can do that with this truck. The more conventional way is, well, they actually make some leveling spacers, but you don't want to do that. The reason you don't want to do that is because that takes away from the performance of the actual coilover, because that's what style suspension setup is in the front of this vehicle, is a coilover spring and shock that's in the front. Now, the best way to do it is to change it out. Well, there's two, I guess, best ways to do it. The more expensive one of those two ways is to change it out with like a King or a Fox coilover. That's going to run you about, at the minimum, $1,000. That's with the non-reservoir, just for the front. Then you got to do the rears as well, because if you do shocks in the front and you don't do the rear to match the front, then to me that's incredibly pointless. Everything's connected. So I didn't want to go that expensive route. Now, Bilstein is commonly known for making like an entry-level adjustable shock for the front. The 5100 series. I think they also have a 6000 series or so that's another option. So the problem is that when I bought the truck in March, that shock wasn't available. They were just finishing developing it. And of course with COVID and everything, I got delayed. So I couldn't buy them until like June or July. So I finally got the rears in and I got everything in, because the rears had to come from Bilstein themselves. So I ordered through 4 Wheel Parts, because that was one of the better prices that I found. So I've got them in, now I'm going to install them. But I wanted to show you what difference that's going to make when it comes to the height, and what difference we're going to get. Now they claim that 5100 series shock can net you anywhere from 0 to 2.5 inches of lift. Now that also depends on what, and I will show you a little bit later in this video when I get into the installation of it, of how you set that and those different settings. But essentially you have the maximum ability to set it at 2.5 inches, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for the maximum ability. So to show you also in terms of how does that relate to the vehicle and what do you get out of that for that 2.5 inches that they claim, I'm going to do some measurements here to show you. So let's go with the front of the truck here. That's from the ground going up through, as you can see, through the center of the wheel there, and we're at about 35. It's hard to get an exact measurement. That's like 35 1/4. That's what it looks like. Now from the center of the wheel, it's looks like about 21 there. So 35 1/4 to 21 inches. That's for the front there. Now the rear sits at about, I'm also going to do, actually, you know what, I'm also going to do another measurement. That's about 30, it's about 38 there. So 35 1/4 in the front, 38 in the rear. Now, 2.5 inches, 35. Now, the way it should go is that 2.5 inches to the front is gonna get you, we'll say 37 3/4. So that should level it to the back. Now, what I've found is because the front is connected to the back, you tend to get a little bit of height out of that. It doesn't naturally pivot like this, right? There's not like it's connected in the center and it rotates. So when you lift the front, it tends to kind of lift the rear a little bit, and essentially maybe getting that leveling effect going on. And that's kind of what I'm going for. I want it to be level across the board. Now, we'll see how that affects geometry. I was thinking maybe if I did the Bilsteins and the geometry is kind of off a little bit because you essentially lift, the front of the truck kind of pushes the A-arms down, that I would actually eventually do like a cambered upper control arm to kind of correct for some of that. But we're gonna see how it goes, because if you look in there, the upper A-arms are pointed up slightly. So, we'll see how it goes. We're gonna take this in steps. I'm trying to do the kind of the budget way first, and then maybe later I'll do some more expensive things, but I'm trying to do the budget. And since these had just become available, I haven't seen any reviews on them. I haven't seen anybody do any video of them. So taking this opportunity, the fact that these just came out, I'm gonna do my own video on them. So as you can see, we've got that 35 1/4 in the front, 38 in the rear. Now, what I'm also gonna do, I have this angle finder here, and I'm going to show you what the angle is on the sill, the middle sill of we're going to get a couple measurements here. So just sitting on the sill, kind of mid of the truck, you see 2.3 degrees there. Now my goal is to show you, and just for fun, we'll stick it there. You see that's about 1.5. So I also want to show you that, and also let's take a look at the ground here. It's about 0.3. So we're not completely level here. So let's zero that there. Take it up here. About 1.8. So the goal will be to try to get this to sit as close to 0 as possible. And we'll see if that 2.5 inches that we're going to get is going to get us there. So keep those numbers. So the way I'm going to do this is, we've got this video here that's kind of introducing what we're doing. And then it'll go into the second part of the video that you'll see. Is to be the installation, and I'll show you kind of, because you have to take the coilover apart, which means you have to get a spring compressor. People are scared of spring compressors. I don't know why, but they're scared of them. So we're gonna have to do that, and then I'll do a third part. I'll come back to the same exact spot, and I will show you the difference and I'll use the same measuring tape, and I'm going to show you the difference in the size, or in the height. So my goal, what I'm trying to do, is get to that 37 1/4 or 37 3/4 height difference, which, like I said, I'm hoping to get the front to match the rear, so we're trying to get it as close as possible. And then also, I'll probably do a driving video, just to kind of, maybe I'll find some bumpy roads and I'll do a driving portion, but that will be in a separate video. This video will be the 3 parts, and then there will be another one. So yeah, that's it. And keep watching, because this next part is going to be installation. All right, so here we are for doing the installation of the Bilstein 5100 series adjustable front shock on 2020 Ford Ranger. Here we go. You can see in here, the light looks all right. This is the stock assembly. So right now I've got the vehicle lifted up I got the front wheels taken off. Now we've got to remove this front assembly. There's 3 nuts up here, right there, and then these 2 bolts down here. Now, I looked in the factory service manual. They want you to take off the tie rod, both upper and lower ball joints. They essentially want you to take this whole entire upright assembly out. So they want you to take the disc and front drive, all of it off. I think that that's probably more work than you need to do. I believe that they're doing that because that's what they've determined as, you know, the ultimate best way to get this shock assembly out. Now, I've personally removed a bunch of similar assemblies on other vehicles without having to take all that much stuff off. So I'm going to try to remove as little as possible. I'll probably take out the brake line bolt here and then the wheel speed sensor bolt there, just to allow these a little bit of freedom. And then I might even take out this is the sway bar, one of the sway bar end links. There's the top one here and the bottom one there. This one looks like it'd be the easiest to get to. They do recommend in the manual that you replace all the fasteners when you remove them, because they are self-locking. Looks like they are mechanical self-locking, maybe. I'd have to take a look at those a little bit closer, but that's their recommendation. Now with the Bilstein, I'll show you what you get with the front shock. You have, this is the front shock that you get when you order the Bilstein, and then there's these pieces that come with it that go, this is required when you put this in place of the stock assembly, and then they give you the 2 bottom bolts and then this top bolt for the shaft there, but they don't give you the 3 bolts that hold the assembly in, so that you need to source on your own from the dealer, or you have to find suitable replacement for these bolts, or nuts, I mean, there. So there you go. Right now I'm gonna take this. I've also got a spring compressor and I'm using to compress that, but right now I'm gonna try to get that out, and then I'll let you know. I'll give a, you know, I'll try to get that out, and then I'll tell you how much I had to remove to get that out nice and easily. So all right, so I tried to do this. I tried to find an easy way. I found the factory service manual online and downloaded it and read through it, and it pretty much has you disassemble the whole entire front end. Now, what they say in the manual is that all these self-locking fasteners with the nylock, and also with like the axle nut here, when you take them off, you have to throw them away. They're one-time use, and even the Bilstein instructions say it as well. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it the way that I'm going to do what they say. So I ordered all the there's the fasteners that you need, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to order all those fasteners in case they take them all off. I have them all. This took about a week to get in. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to do it one step at a time and try to find maybe a quicker way to do it. The problem is the actual coilover, factory coilover itself, sits deep inside the lower A-arm. So you almost have to disconnect everything to get enough travel to push the lower A-arm down far enough to get that top part out of the top mount here. So that's the problem, is you pretty much, like, in order to get all that travel, you have to, you know, I just connected the axle, the tie rod, the brake, the upper A-arm, and you can see there, that's the whole upright assembly that usually is in here.
I also just did the sway bar and the wheel speed sensor, just so that I could get it. So pretty much you disassemble almost the whole entire front end, which, because it's fairly new, everything comes apart pretty easily. I only had to use like some of these pullers I didn't even use, I just had them out. But yeah, you've got to disassemble like a lot. So there's no quick and easy way, because it's like they've designed everything to fit so well in there that you just can't get the space to get the coilover out. But so now I'm going to disassemble the coilover, put in a Bilstein, and then I'll do an update after that. And then I still got to do the passenger side. This is the driver's side. So, all right. So the next step, we got to disassemble the stock coilover to get the shock out of it, so that we can put the Bilstein in. And everybody's always concerned about compressing the spring, because you're compressing all that energy from, you know, all that. And best way to do it is with like one of those wall-mounted spring compressors. But you know, you can rent that one from like an O'Reilly, assemble it like that, and compress this part just enough to start to get the nut off of that. Bilstein shock comes with a new nut, and I think this new plastic washer there, and then a new spacer that goes in there. So yeah, a little bit of what I did was a little bit of tight, you know, until it starts to compress, and I just slowly loosen that. And as I tighten that, you know, as I get it tight, and then I slowly loosen this, and then it just pops off. We'll see how difficult it is to get the new one back on. All right, next step. So I have disassembled. That's the stock shock. Here's the circlip location of the stock spring seat. This is the stock spring seat here. So they want you to take off the boot and cut it about 1.5 inches. If you're going to use circlip location number 5, that's this one here. This is the lowest lift height. This is the highest lift height. I'm going with the highest. So if you do that, they want you to cut the dust boot down about that much off, about 1.5 inches. So I've cut that off. This is the Bilstein damper. They give you this spring seat adapter. So then this goes on over that, sits on that. You don't use the bump stop anymore. So you can see here in the instructions, that's how it goes. And so that's where I'm at now. So I'm in the process of assembling the new Bilstein. Yep. So, and the dust boot cuts easily with scissors. And you can kind of clean it up with a razor blade or something like that. But yeah, that's it for the next step. I'm gonna put this back together and hopefully update when it's assembled again. All right, so here is the assembled Bilstein dampener. New lock nut that they supply you there. Now, the trick is to making sure that the bottom T there stays in line with how the top came out of the top shock mount, because that pin is like an alignment pin, and everything has to stay aligned. So when you put it back in there, the top and the bottom are aligned together. The other challenge is these kind of spring compressors, this kind, only compress the spring so much. I had to put it in my shop press to get it that extra little bit to get the nut on there. Push it down so I could get the so I could at least get the threads to show, and then I just took it the rest of the way. But so that's the assembly part there. Now I gotta put everything back together and do the other side.
Alright, so I have installed the Bilstein shocks in the front, and as you can see by it sitting here, it is pretty level. So I went to the highest setting, as you saw in the earlier on in the video. Went to that top circlip groove, and that has gotten me the 2.5 inches. Now, let's see what the measurements come out to. So before, I want to say we were 38 in the back, like 35.25. It seems to be almost at 37.25. So, you know, almost to where, and the rear is still at 38. So, almost even with the rear. Now, you probably, I would imagine that at the most truck manufacturers, when they're developing these vehicles, I look around and I see them. They all have that nose down, and I'm going to assume that is because in order to claim it can tow what they can tow, they have to set the suspension up for that. And I think that is why most trucks feel a little oversprung, especially in the rear. So, without being able to tune the rear spring, you're kind of stuck with this oversprung rear, and you also have to take into account payload capacity that they rate and the towing capacity. In order to get that, you know, you're just going to have to overspring the rear, because you're going to have to set the truck up for carrying that weight all the time. And so when it's empty, it just, unfortunately, it's oversprung. So I thought that maybe to mitigate that, I could raise the front up a little bit, maybe put some weight. I don't know, it kind of preloads the back of it, but, you know, I don't think that's really the case. So, but anyway, that's how far up the front has gone. Now let's do the angle. So now we're at 1.1. I don't know where, I don't remember what the other number was, but I'm sure I'm going to remember when I go to edit this video. So it's at 1.1 degrees. Yeah. Just cause. Really no reason other than just to do it. I think that's more the important number. So 37.25 in the front. And it's brought this air dam up a little bit more. It just was, the nose was so far down before. So there you go. That's it. Ride-wise, they feel different. I'm not yet sure if it's better than stock, even though it does initially feel better. So I'd imagine if you went maybe with the Foxes or the Kings, I'd love to try them all just to see. I think, and then possibly what I might do next is bigger tires. So, which is common, but it already feels different when you sit behind the driver's seat. You don't feel like you're nose down anymore. You feel more level. You feel like the Tacoma feels. To me, every time I drive the Tacoma, I always feel like I'm sitting level. So now I feel like I'm sitting level in this, and so I'm happy with that so far. I got it aligned this morning, and they said toe was out. I figured the camber would be out, but I don't know, maybe it has to settle a little bit. We'll see. Anyway, there you go. 37.25 gain net in the front. Still sitting at 38 in the rear. So, I recommend them. Oh, just so you know, well, you saw, never mind, you saw the video.